Okay, my final video about the Shaw Brothers' attempts to capture Jin Yong's Condor Heroes and its sequels. There's three sort of Heaven Sword and Dragon Sabre films. Honestly, these movies are only tangentially related to the whole Condor Heroes series. The first two movies are lazy Saturday morning entertainment. Most of the story takes place about 100 years after the death of the titular Condor shooting hero Guo Jing. He gets mentioned in the very long and confusing prologue, but that's about it. But they're sadly part of the early 80s descent of the Shaw Studios trying to recapture the magic of the late 60s. We've left the world of Chang Che, full of its manly bravado and quasi-realistic punching. Chang attempted in his later years to fit his style into the old wuxia mold with movies like the Brave Archer trilogy and some of the campier Venoms movies like Kid with the Golden Arm and Five Element Ninjas. Those movies definitely have their fans, but I personally prefer Chang's grittier work from the early 70s. With Heaven Sword and Dragon Sabre 1 and 2, we are now entering the world of Chor Yuen, whose inventive, colorful styling gave my generation a bewildering glimpse into Asia during our childhoods. Now, some of it really works. I covered Chor Yuen's Kung Fu detective movies in an earlier review, movies which I still think have reverberations in Chinese language blockbusters today, like Detective D. But, like Brave Archer 1 and 2, Heaven Sword and Dragon Sabre 1 and 2 try to cram a whole lot of novel into a couple shortish films, and it's sometimes a headache to follow. The late-era Shaw Brothers wuxia output included some wildly inventive movies, like the aforementioned Venoms films, or Buddha's Palm, or Holy Flame of the Martial World, or The Human Lanterns. Those movies thrive on, I cannot believe I just saw that. And the Heaven Sword and Dragon Sabre movies never quite reach that apex of insanity. There's a cool effect where the hero, Wang Wuji, learns to teleport, and a suspenseful sequence in which a group of kung fu masters must scramble out of a burning pagoda into a sea of waiting enemy warriors. This stuff is very entertaining, but it's all kind of meat and potatoes, not fine dining. The first movie follows a terminally ill kung fu hero played by Derek Yee as he tries to find his parents' killers. He butts heads with clan leaders from the usual clans, Shaolin, the Beggar Clan, Wu-Tang, etc. It's all enjoyable, lightweight, wire-fu action. Like its predecessor, Heaven Sword and Dragon Sabre 2 is great looking, if a little watery. The hero, played again by Derek Yee, has become the leader of the Ming cult. He's torn in a love triangle with two women, both of whom may want to kill him, and that's kind of about it. This came out only a week after the first movie, which was good. It doesn't need to rehash the overly crammed previous movie's plot. Not bad if you enjoy flamboyant, if not expert fighting, and can forgive intrigue that is only modestly intriguing. It's fun to look at, and it's very fast-paced. But Chor Yuen had a lot of better offerings in the 80s, and there are televised versions of the same story which are far better. In their absolute final years, the Shaws and Chor Yuen returned to the property with Hidden Power of the Dragon Sabre. I complained that the previous two films weren't quite crazy enough, but the third installment more than makes up for it. A shape-shifting assassin who occasionally turns into a male-female hybrid, one side on the left and the other on the right, is setting the Han Ming cult against the Mongolian army. Derek Yee and T Lung must find common ground to save the day. We've got trap rooms decorated with Renaissance paintings and a big statue of a blonde man with an apple. A girl gets repeatedly lowered into a swamp in a cage. Hallways go under the Mongolian palace that I'm guessing were leftovers from the tacky Shaw Brothers Star Wars spoof Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and a bizarre trap made of rainbow lights that just keeps on going, and it makes very little sense. Oh, and lasers. Lots of lasers. And lens flares. Lots of lens flares. This is the kind of movie that is at once loads of fun and also gives wuxia a bad reputation. Despite its straightforward plot, you honestly have no idea what's going on most of the time. Qigong is ever present, pushing the limits of author Jin Yong's relatively restrained kung fu magic as people fly everywhere. If you like the crazy side of Hong Kong cinema, this has got it. Nowhere near as recommended as Little Dragon Maiden or Holy Flame of the Martial World, but it's 83 minutes of gaudy spectacle. So that's the conclusion to my roundup of the 8 Condor Heroes movies at the Shaw Brothers across the 70s and early 80s. I hope you've enjoyed it and are intrigued enough to dig in deeper. 1,792 pages deeper? Well, that's totally up to you.